Welcome to Talent Bus, where I talk about talent acquisition with fast-growing SaaS companies. My name is Samuli Salonen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of TalentBee, where we help SaaS companies in their talent acquisition. Today, I'm talking with a company called SalesScreen and their VP of People Operations, Emilie Sørgård Anderssen. And today we are talking three very interesting topics: employer branding, finding the balance between when to hire people, profitability, and growth of the company. And lastly, we are talking about how to make your teams work together towards the similar and same goals. Let's start the episode with a little introduction from Emilie to her and the company SalesScreen.
I work as the Vice President of People Operations here in SalesScreen. I've been here for almost 5 years now, 4 of them in my current role, and manage basically everything people related for our teams globally. So that's me. We are a Norwegian founded company. We started up in 2011. Currently, we are around 50 employees globally. We currently have teammates across Europe and also in the US. We work within the sales gamification space. So basically trying to increase sales productivity using gamification methods. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's quite interesting topic. I'm personally big fan of different kind of games, and when I prepared for this episode, I found your product very kind of fascinating. I've never used anything like that, but it seems like a cool cool idea to kind of make it fun in a fun way. Hey, today we are talking a lot of different topics, kind of one of them being balancing between growth and profitability. Then we talk a bit about how to kind of combine different teams, make sure that teams are working together towards the kind of goals that we have, and then lastly a bit on employer branding. But maybe in the beginning we could start to talk about the profitability and growth. And I think for SaaS companies is a very interesting topic because there are a lot of those stories where a SaaS company has raised a ton of funding and then they are just burning a lot of cash. And I think especially last year we've seen a lot of those companies having some problems because it's harder and harder to raise capital. But what's been kind of your approach on the growth? Like, should you be focusing more on growth or should you be focusing more on profitability, and like how you have balanced that one on SalesScreen?
Yeah. It's gone in phases, right? With the market, we were bootstrapped until 2018. So kind of using the money we have at hand were kind of the backbone for many years. We then took in our first investor round, and of course we raised a decent amount of money, making the hiring strategy and the growth strategy pretty different than what it was. So of course we, as a lot of other tech companies, hired a lot of people quickly. Luckily, SalesScreen is, for us, it was luckily when the tech bubble burst, I would say. We were never that many people. I think at max we were around 75. And then, of course, when the tech bubble burst a few years back, we, as other companies, had to turn around, right? It was going from, I would say, from an investor perspective, it was growth at all costs to more, you have to become profitable for us to be interested in investing in your company. And luckily for us, we were able to turn around very quickly. We did the things that we needed to do. And June last year, we actually became profitable. So we've been profitable for almost a year now, which is really good. Of course, last year, we didn't hire almost any positions. It was only a few replacements. It was a hiring freeze. And we were really focusing on the profitable part or path. And now I would say we are back to growth, I would say a lot more healthy than in the past. It's not growth at all costs anymore. It's growth at healthy costs. So we hire again, but at a slow scale. I would say it's replacements and it's must-have roles that we hire for now.
Yeah, I think it's been quite an interesting change. When talking with SaaS companies, founders, or head of people or head of operations, like really seeing the movement from, let's say, 5 years ago. I feel like for a lot of companies, like headcount growth was the main metric. Then it went from there to maybe revenue per employee, and now it's really moved from revenue per employee to profit per employee. So it's quite interesting to see the change. Do you believe, like you mentioned now, that now you are of course hiring for some backfill roles and for some growth roles, but like do you believe that at some point there will be kind of a growth sprint again where you kind of hire more people towards growth and maybe go once again away from the profitability and focusing more on growth side of things, if the market changes and the capital market changes and so forth?
Yeah, I think that's the key word, right? If the market changes, or if our company get bought, or if we get an investor that really wants us to move fast. I think everyone still has very much in mind the tech crash, I would say. So I think overall you would be a bit more conscious on hiring a lot of people at the same time. At least I would be very hesitant to do that. Of course, if you ask me in 2 years and the market has really shifted, then my answer would probably or might be something else. But for now, I think everyone is a bit more cost conscious and a bit more on the defensive side of hiring that many people at once.
Yeah. If we think about the kind of hiring triggers, I think this is a very interesting topic. And I think there's two parts. There's kind of the new hires and then the backfill hires. But maybe starting from the backfill hires, and, a SaaS company, you have different departments, sales, marketing, tech, customer success, whatsoever. But if we start from backfill hires, let's say a person leaves your tech team, will it be nowadays like automatic that, hey, okay, let's find someone for that role? Or do you more look at it from the whole company perspective that, okay, hey, now we have kind of budget to hire one more person? Is it beneficial to hire that person in the tech team, or would it make sense to hire someone for the sales team or for the marketing team? So, or how does it go for the backfill roles?
I For us, I would say it's an overall assessment of what is the current need for the business. Was that person on the tech team? Are we enough people on the tech team, or is our pipeline so huge that we need more sellers? I would say it's more an overall assessment now. Of course, if you ask the department heads, they would always want to backfill on their team. But I do think it's more an overall assessment by the leaders of the company now on what's business critical and what type of people do we need at this current stage. So I wouldn't say just because an engineer or a salesperson leave the company, it's not automatic that we will backfill that role compared to another.
Who's kind of the one making decisions on those? As you mentioned, like the team lead or hiring manager, when you go and you are like, hey, you're not getting anyone here, but we are actually deciding to hire someone on the sales team, they might not actually like the idea. Of course, as you mentioned, it is important to discuss those and really look what is best for the company, and hopefully, the team leaders are people who kind of understand that, hey, we need to do things that are best for the company, not only for my team. But still, it might feel hard. So who's kind of in the end responsible of making the decision where we hire? Is it you or someone else?
Luckily, it's not only me. I for all positions that we hire in now, it needs to be approved by the leader group. As I mentioned, we are around 50 people, so we're not that many. So department heads, leader groups working very closely together. So all positions that are either going on the market or we're going to backfill is going to have to be approved by the leader group as a whole. Of course, at the end of it, the CEO is the one having the final word there. But I would say it's a good group discussion every single time.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. But how about then, like for new roles? Of course, I think for the new roles there is a lot of kind of similar stuff as you mentioned. The leaderboard is going through those. But what would you say? Like, what are the kind of triggers over there for hiring? Is it more, of course, there is kind of need side of things, like, hey, now we realize that we need help on tech side, or now we need help somewhere here. But then there is, I think, the profitability comes in as well. And what I've heard, at least from a lot of our customers, is like when we hit a certain monthly recurring revenue goal, that kind of triggers that, hey, okay, now we can hire another person. So how would you describe the kind of triggers in hiring new people to the team?
I would say a must-have role for us is someone who's going to move the needle in a positive way for the business. So whether that's an engineer making the team being able to push a feature that a lot of customers or clients have been asking for, or as I mentioned, is our pipeline so huge that our sellers can't handle all the leads, or we're currently hiring for a revenue operations manager because our revenue tech stack is really complicated. There's a lot of systems, and having that person in that's going to make the job easier for our revenue team and making them spending more time on their actual job is something that we believe is going to move the needle in a positive way for the business. So I would say that is kind of our go-to now, like what is going to help our business. And that can be in any aspect, right? It can be for the product. It can be for our team in operations. It can be sales, which is an easy one. Or in marketing, which is our marketing team is almost as big as our sales team now, because marketing is the way to go these days.
Yeah.
So it's not a very concrete answer on what's the trigger. And as I mentioned, like all the positions that we are hiring for, the hiring manager needs to present a business case of why this is so important for that person or that department or the company as a whole. So, and as I mentioned, it's an overall assessment by the leader group. So, when we post jobs, it's well thought through.
Yeah.
Now.
I think it's quite smart as well. Back in the days, I feel like a lot of companies just hired like crazy without maybe thinking, is there a business case or do we really need this person? But at the same time, of course, like when you grow super, super fast, you kind of need to do that one. But I think in this situation, it kind of makes sense to really, really figure out what you need and do you really, really need it.
Yeah.
By one
I
thing
think
you
it's
mentioned,
helpful. Sorry.
yeah, it is. It is. One
Mm.
thing you mentioned when kind of preparing for this episode, you mentioned cross-functional enablement, and I think that was a very interesting term. And I think that is a term that you can understand in different ways. So can you first share, like, what do you mean by cross-functional enablement? What does it mean for you in your company?
Cross-functional enablement, I would say for us, is our teams working seamlessly together and having the framework to work closely together and not in silos. especially for our revenue teams, customer success, marketing, and sales, it's so important for us that they all move in the same direction, that we're giving the customers from initial touch point to when they sign a deal, the same message on what we are going to help them with is really crucial. And of course, then you have to bring in the product team as well, because they're making the product. So having that framework of really breaking down silos and making sure that all our teams are aligned is cross-functional enablement, I would say, for us.
Yeah. Would you say that, the key for alignment is like kind of similar goals or the same goal for everyone, that everyone is working towards the same goal? Or would you say it's more about maybe a cultural thing in a way? Hey, this is how we treat customers, or this is how we help customers, or how would you say that?
I think it's a combination of both. Yes, you want to have a unified customer journey. You want to see that the thing that you were sold, that it's actually aligning when you sign the contract, right? And then now I forgot your question. Sorry.
No worries. Maybe kind of regarding the kind of KPI part, like, do you have some like one North Star metric for the whole company that kind of everyone is aiming towards?
We of course we work with OKRs, and one of our top ones this year is being customer obsessed, which I like, because then it's all teams are rallying behind being customer obsessed. So that's a good one, and of course we're working towards enterprise as well. How can we all make sure that we are in a place where we are able to close enterprise business? And that comes from the product being ready for handling that many users at one time. It comes to marketing, what's our ideal ICP? It comes to our sales processes. How do we sell to enterprise? Because that's very different than selling to small businesses or mid-market. And it comes to our customer success teams when it comes to handling clients that size. Usually when there's enterprise business, there's opportunities for upsells or expansions. So having that as kind of a main goal for everyone, it requires everyone to ramp up in their roles and to really focus on how to make the product better, how to make our sales processes better, marketing, who are we targeting, and our customer success team as well, being able to handle those types of clients.
Yeah. What do you think, like, whether we think about, goals or values or, anything like that in a company? I feel like, the persons that are working closely with those topics, they remember those. I remember our values as a CEO. You remember those things as kind of working on those things. But then I think it's very interesting, like, as the organization gets bigger and bigger, like, do people remember those things? What would you guess? Like, if I would go now and find all 50 of your employees, and I would ask from everyone, like, hey, what's the two most important goals for this year? Do you think I would get a lot of similar answers, or do you think there would be like some changes in the answers?
I do hope the majority now would remember our values and of course our main objectives for this year, because we put a lot of things in motion to make sure that everyone is working towards the same goals. We're very transparent. We put in place some things to make sure that our employees are aware and working towards our goals. Every month we have all hands every Friday, but every month we dedicate an all hands meeting to a strategy update from each department heads, where we specifically go into our goals of the years, our objective and key results. We see the tracking, we see what kind of project we're working on to work towards those objectives. So we have a business update every single month to make sure that everyone is aware of our goals and having them very easy, accessible, and they see the progress tracking as well. So I do hope, if you asked the majority of our employees, that they at least would remember some of them.
Yeah, it would be interesting survey to do for sure. So, what would you say, like, maybe for I think, you know, what you mentioned there regarding, you know, having common goals and all that, I think that is something that, you know, most companies are aiming towards to. I think especially, you know, if we look at revenue teams, sales and marketing, there's been, you know, a lot of discussion on like how you should have similar goals, and marketing shouldn't be measured in marketing qualified leads and sales on revenue, but rather having a goal on revenue that, you know, we are working towards together. But what would you say, like, you know, when trying to kind of accomplish that one, teams working together towards the same goals, like what has been the biggest challenges around that one?
I think it's been a lot of trying and failing, and then trying and succeeding. I think it comes down to the people that you hire in those leaderships roles as well. They have to go and be the forefront. We are now very lucky to have a VP of sales, VP of marketing, and customer success that works very closely together, and they see the benefit of the three of them and their departments working closely. Especially sales and marketing, they're doing everything together now. We have something that we call account-based everything, meaning our marketing strategy, our sales strategy, and of course our customer success strategy as well. So those should be aligned. But it comes down to the people. I would say I don't know why, but it goes back to the days where marketing and sales were kind of competing. And I don't think for us that the one thing goes without the other. Like sales are reliant on marketing for them to get leads, and marketing is reliant on the sales team as well, right, to close that business. So I think for us it's working very well now. We're lucky enough to have the people that understand the importance of both, or all three, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sounds very good. Yeah, I've seen the same. I used to work previously as a head of sales in a marketing agency, and I remember back then, like, you know, there was a lot of this discussion regarding marketing department, and that, you know, marketing departments are just a kind of support function in a way, rather than a, you know, real revenue function. And I feel like, you know, especially past 2-3 years, I've really seen the, you know, transition in a lot of SaaS companies going towards where like marketing and sales are really working together, and, you know, revenue teams or rev ops or, you know, something like that. I think, you know, those are cool things to come, and I think they are creating good things for the SaaS companies.
Definitely. As I mentioned earlier, our marketing team is almost as big as our sales team at this point. So
Exactly. And I think, you know, latest today, for example, I just bought one software product, and like I never talked with the salesperson over there. So, you know, I think more and more people are buying from online. Of course, you know, as you mentioned, going towards enterprise, it might be a bit more sales heavy, but still like very, very, very important. Hey, lastly, employer branding. I think this is actually quite interesting topic in a way as well, because, you know, I look at recruitment and employer branding similar to sales and marketing. And what I see is over there, it comes like 5 years behind sales and marketing. in sales and marketing, we have now realized that, okay, marketing is also a revenue function. We should do a lot of marketing. And as you mentioned, like in a SaaS company like yours, nowadays the sales and marketing team are the same size. But when we go to recruitment and employee branding and, looking at big talent acquisition teams, typically the rate is like, hey, we have 10 recruiters and, one employee branding person. So the balance is kind of a bit off. And I believe that in the future, companies start to do actually more and more employee branding. And because of that one, they need to, actually do less recruitment in a way. So I would say, like, what's kind of the status of employer branding at SalesScreen now? Have you done it actively for a long time, or where are you with that?
I am currently running an employer branding project. It hasn't been forefront for us just because of resources for years. And also here in the Nordics or in Europe, I would say we have been fortunate enough to have a pretty strong brand that if you work within the tech space, you would most likely have heard about us from before. When we started going to the US, it was a lot harder. We were a small company from Norway. No one had heard about us. And I would say that is when the realization of like we have to work actively with employer branding and brand awareness really came in place. And then it's the last half year, I would say, that I have been working actively on our employer branding strategy. So we just launched internally our employee value proposition. Very exciting. So we're going to push that out to the public anytime soon now. And of course, we had a leader group meeting yesterday where we talked about employer branding and how I'm going to be in need of our marketing resources for this. Because employer branding is also marketing. And I would say having the people team and the marketing team working together on this is crucial. Unless you have a background within both yourself. I personally don't. I'm no marketer. So having our marketing team rally behind the strategy and helping executing is definitely crucial for us. But I would say we are in the not necessarily the beginning phase of working with employer branding, but in the scale up phase, I would say.
Yeah. What would you say, like now when working on the employee value proposition and building that one? I think that's quite interesting part. I think maybe a mistake that a lot of companies do is like they work super hard on that one, but then the actual execution and actual marketing and kind of getting that message out there is kind of left out a bit too much. But I think for me, what is important part over there is of course finding something that kind of really differentiates you from other companies. I think there's a bit too many of those, like, hey, we have a cool culture, like everyone is saying that one, but then at the same time it needs to be something that is kind of true, because like we don't want to tell false stories, because that's the one of the easiest way to get your retention number quite bad. People joining a company and then the day-to-day life is something completely different that you kind of thought. So how did you work on figuring out how to put your employee value proposition?
So we interviewed a lot of people in the company. We interviewed ICs, we interviewed managers, we interviewed the founders. So we made sure that we had a 360 view on what people are saying about our culture, the things that we're looking for when we're recruiting new hires, the main reason they're staying at the company, the main reason they started at the company. So we were left with a bunch of answers where we pulled out the key words that aligned with managers, employees, and the founders. Based on those words, me and the VP of marketing sat down together. looked at the words, tried to define what those words means for us. And she, as the great mind that she is, she put them together in a beautiful employee value proposition. So it took a lot of time, but we, as you say, we really wanted to capture what's true and what's real for the company more than we have an amazing culture, because everyone can say that. We wanted something raw, I would say.
Yeah. And as you mentioned now, the interesting time comes when you start to work together with your marketing on that one. It's a question that I've been thinking myself a lot, like who should be owning employer branding? Should it be marketing? Should it be people function? Should it be together? And of course, I do think the optimal situation would be that you have someone in charge of employer branding who really knows employer branding, but and has background from there. But then I think for most companies your size, there is just not kind of enough resources to hire a full-time person for that one. And then the marketing is typically the way to go. But then I think there is also a lot of challenges, especially knowing how the marketing people are measured. Most of them are measured regarding revenue. Their main focus is over there. And then easily the employer branding kind of becomes a kind of side hustle for them that they do if they have some extra time. So how do you think that you will be kind of tackling that challenge?
I think it comes down to what's business critical again, right? I think attracting talent is, of course, a high priority for the company. You always want to attract and retain good talent. And I am at least lucky enough to have a team around me, both with leaders and marketing and CEO, that understands the importance of getting the right people in at the right time, and at a high pace. Because as I mentioned, when we're hiring for must-have roles, and of course we would like them to start yesterday. So of course it's always a priority, but I think we all agree that having a good employer branding strategy and that helping us in attracting and retaining talent is definitely a priority for us.
Yeah. Last question. This is a hard one. If you can only choose one metric for employer branding, what would it be?
It's a very good question. I would probably say at this point, candidate quality, probably. Because we are in the phase that we are in. So job performance and retention of high talent would definitely be my top employer branding key metric.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you got a lot of good ideas about SaaS talent acquisition. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it on your socials so others can hear it too. And if you have a topic in mind that you would like me to cover in this podcast, share it with me as well. I'm Samuli, CEO and co-founder in TalentBee, where we help fast-growing SaaS companies in their talent acquisition. Make sure to follow us, make sure to follow this podcast, and have an awesome week. Bye-bye.